If you met me today, you would probably never guess that I was addicted to smoking weed for 5 years. I couldn't imagine a single day without it, and today I'm nearly 3 years sober and I wanted to share my story, which I've never shared online before. So here is the story which has never been told on social media. Hello everyone, this is a very different type of video for me. Welcome to my channel if you're new here, welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Sophia. I never really knew that I was ever going to make this video. I mean, if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I was ever even going to post a video like this on YouTube, I probably would have laughed, because the topic I'm going to be talking about today is something I never even knew I would have overcome, genuinely, and I'm going to get into it in this video. Before we start, I'd be super grateful, of course, if you could like, comment and subscribe. And also, just a trigger warning that I am going to be discussing themes in this video of addiction and smoking and things like that. So if you are someone who does get triggered by this, I would advise that you don't watch this video, but I am making this video for educational purposes in hopes that I might be able to help somebody else and inspire someone and hopefully help someone who is also going through the same thing. So where do I start? I used to be addicted to smoking weed, and it got so bad that I would say it probably nearly did take my life to some extent. Now, you're probably thinking, well, how is that possible? Let me start from the very beginning. So, of course, like growing up, you try different things. And when I was growing up, I think maybe I smoked my first bit of weed when I was like 15 years old. And I tried it like you do with your friends for fun. I didn't think much of it. I didn't really like it. It made me feel a bit weird. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to do that again. And then, you know, of course, you end up smoking it occasionally. And then the people I started hanging around with, they all smoked weed too. So I started smoking it more and more. And a couple of years has passed. And I remember it was actually during lockdown, I started smoking weed a lot. And I managed to hide it from my parents, and nobody at the time knew. And it wasn't really an addiction, I'd say, per se at this point. It was just like, oh, a bit of fun, something, you know, just to kill the time in lockdown. And like I say, I was only 17. And I never thought that it would get so serious to the point where I was actually addicted even 6 months later. So I came out of lockdown and I had actually just entered a relationship. Now, the guy that I met at the time, he also smoked weed. Now, I'm not throwing any shade towards him. I'm not giving him any hate. He did not encourage this. This was, of course, a decision which I made on my own. I just want to state that. But both of us did smoke, and I remember it was that year, so when I was 17, and it started turning into smoking maybe twice a day, which doesn't really seem like a big deal, right? And it was like my little routine, you know, I would get on with my day, and it all started out as my reward in the evening. And this is how I used to view it. I'd be like, I'm going to get my whole day done, and then I'm going to smoke. And then occasionally on the weekends, to kill time, we would have a smoke. And as time went on, I just started getting so addicted, I guess, and I started relying on it. And it genuinely started taking over my life, because all I could think about was the next joint. All I could think about at the end of the day was how I'm going to smoke and when I'm going to smoke. And that was like my motivation to keep me going. Now, I worked a 9 to 5 at this time, and I even started rolling my joints as soon as I woke up before work, so that I had a joint ready for me for when I got home. Now, then the first thing I would do as soon as I got home from work was I would light up my joint so I could be high to enjoy my dinner. I couldn't eat food without being high at one point, because, of course, in my head, I was like, it makes everything better. I started relying on it to sleep. I started relying on it to numb all of my feelings. And I just started so heavily relying on smoking weed and having this cannabis every single day that I didn't see a problem with it. Now, my family knew about it at this time. And of course, they weren't like supportive, but you know, they said kind of like, it's your life, you can do what you want to do, but like, we don't like this, you know, it's not good to be doing this. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, it's fine. Like, I'm not addicted, you know, I just do it because it's so fun. I love getting high. I love watching conspiracy videos when I'm high, right? And genuinely one of the lowest times in my life when I started smoking was I started hearing voices in my head. Now, I'm not to say that this is the case for everyone. And some people can smoke weed their entire lives and be absolutely fine with it. But for me, I started getting severe anxiety. I started not wanting to go out in public. I started thinking everybody was talking about me. I started thinking that everyone hated me. I lived with my ex-boyfriend at the time, and I didn't even want to leave his bedroom because I was high all of the time, and I felt so anxious, like when I wasn't at work. And I remember his mum saying to me, Sophia, like, you can come out and you can interact with us. And I'd be like, oh no, it's fine. And I just shut myself in the bedroom because I was so high all the time and I was so anxious. And going back to hearing all of these thoughts and these voices, I didn't obviously know what they were, and I found it scary because I would just hear like whispers, like shh, 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 all the time. And I genuinely started thinking maybe I had schizophrenia. So as time went on, you know, I tried to cut down, and at one point though, like, we were spending, between the two of us, we were spending anywhere between like 60 and £100 a week just on weed. And it turned into having one per day to maybe 3 or 4 of one evening, in like 1 hour until I went to bed, getting so high to the point where I made myself pass out. And I look back now and I think that is not a way to live. Like, that is, now that I'm out of it and I can fully acknowledge the situation that I put myself in, I'm like, I cannot believe that I lived like that for so long. But I genuinely didn't see a way out. Now, the main thing that I wanted to share was, I remember the turning point. Like, this is really difficult for me to talk about because I've never really spoken about this on my channel before, because like when people meet me and stuff, you know, obviously they see this like healthy version of myself that's a coach and helps other people and takes care of my body, and I'm so attentive to what I put in my body now, and I'm so cautious. So like, for someone to hear, you know, like I used to be addicted to smoking weed and eating junk food, they're like, whoa. Anyway, so I remember, like, this is a lot to talk about. I left my job as a barber in the shop, right? And I decided to go like freelance. And my addiction was so bad that when I had my clients, let's just use this as an example. I had, say, three people per day, like spaced out throughout the day. If I had a window of 2 hours, then for me, that was enough time. Like, I feel ashamed to admit this, but for me, that was enough time to smoke a joint and be high, and the effects wear off before I go see my next client, you know, and shower. And I was very conscious though of like, oh, I don't want to smell like it, you know, and I never wanted to drive high. Like, I never did any of that. So to me, I was like, I'm going to give myself a 2-hour window so that I'm no longer high, so that I can go and do my work. And one day I kind of sat myself down, and at this point I must have been smoking like 5 or 6 joints a day. Now, I'm not sure in terms of like grams or anything. Sometimes I'd be like, oh, let's chuck a whole gram into a joint, you know, that's like £10 in one thing just to smoke it. Like, to me, that's crazy. And yeah, and genuinely my turning point though was one day I sat myself down and I said out loud, or maybe I even said it to my partner at the time, I cannot understand how somebody can live their life without weed. And I genuinely would look at other people who basically, I would look at people who I am now. Like, let's say this future version of myself, who I currently am, was walking down the street and the girl who I was at that time saw me. I would have looked at myself and gone, how does she function without weed? How does she not get high first thing in the morning? And that for me was my point of like, this is an addiction. This is severe. This is a problem. Like, I need to do something about it. And I genuinely, I could not understand how people didn't get high. I just couldn't even fathom it. And I feel so grateful now that I'm able to look back on that and I'm able to say that, because obviously I never knew that this like was a thing, and I'm so glad I'm out of that, but I'll get into that in a minute. And Yeah, like our weekends used to look like waking up first thing in the morning, and we would say wake and bake, and we used to get high, and basically just before I'd even allowed myself enough time to wake up, I would be high, we'd be smoking, we'd order a McDonald's breakfast, and then we would eat the McDonald's breakfast whilst we were high. As soon as we've eaten, maybe then we'd smoke another joint, and then it's like 11, 12 p.m. at this point. It's midday, haven't gone out anywhere because all I wanted to do was stay in and get high, stay in the bedroom with the curtains shut, watching movies all day, just getting absolutely stoned out of my head. And this was what genuinely pushed me to a breaking point mentally, because as I say, I started hearing voices, and I couldn't see a hope with my future, and I was so afraid for myself that I was never going to be able to pull myself out of this addiction. I think it genuinely made me depressed. And I remember saying to my partner at the time, you know, like, I want us to stop together, because if I stop but you're still smoking, I'm going to find that really difficult. And he was supportive, you know, but we would never do it. We would just start, and then for like a day, and then I'd be like, no, I can't do it. I need a joint. And I used to get so irritated. And I remember my mum used to say to me, Sophia, you act like a completely different person when you haven't had a joint. You're irritable, you're angry, you're moody, you're rude, because you haven't had a joint. Like, it's really, really affecting you. And because I wanted to get high, I used to turn down many things, turn down many social events, stuff like that. And we took many trips to Amsterdam, of course, to get high. Now, how I kind of broke away from this, I want to kind of explain, in case there are people watching this thinking I genuinely don't know how to stop. Then here are a few things which helped me. I kind of envisioned who I wanted to be. So, of course, like back in that time, I was heavily overweight. Of course, I had this raging weed addiction. I didn't really have a clear direction with where I wanted to go in my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was addicted to junk food. I would binge eat. I would eat like a whole Domino's in one sitting, and then like 2 chocolate bars, full fat bottles of Coke every single day. Like, I would eat McDonald's for breakfast, Burger King for lunch, and then like Pizza Hut for dinner. Like, my food addiction was out of control because it made me feel better. So I used to binge because I felt bad, but then feel bad because I binged, if that makes sense. Whereas, of course, now, like going back to how my Sundays used to look compared to now, it was Sunday yesterday. I woke up, you know, I went on a run, I moved my body, I do a morning routine where I stretch, I drink water like before I have any coffee, and then I go meet my friends for a coffee, and then perhaps I go to the gym, and then, you know, I do fun hobbies, and I live my life. I'll be 3 years sober in February, and I'm so grateful for this, because I never ever thought that I would say that I'm sober. And yeah, I'm just so happy for this, because now like my whole life doesn't revolve around that. I can wake up with a clear mind. That's another thing, sorry, I forgot to mention, was the brain fog. The brain fog was insane. The weed high, waking up the next morning feeling so, what we used to say is monged. We'd be like, I've woken up feeling so monged, because you just got so stoned out of your head that like it turned into a zombie. But this was the case for me. Like I say, it's not the case for everyone. Now, talking about how I managed to overcome this and like the time frame of this and what happened. So I was still smoking weed in, it would have been 2023. Yeah, because we're 2026. So 2023, I was 20 years old. So that was like the height of my addiction, right? And we had gone to Amsterdam in December of 2023, and I actually started the gym in September of 2023. Now, when I started the gym, of course, that gave me a completely different purpose with my life, because I would go to work. I was still smoking weed at this time, but the gym gave me a feeling which I'd never had. It kind of started replacing the need to want a joint, because I would feel so tired, and it would give me so much like good energy that I would be like, oh, actually, you know, I don't feel it, but I would still smoke one anyway out of habit. It was all about habits. But once I started replacing the smoking habits with things like going to the gym and going for a run, that's when I genuinely started to see like a big increase in how I was feeling. So as time had gone on in like September, you know, like I say, I was still smoking every single day, still smoking a lot. We went to Amsterdam like 3 times in the course of a few months, because if you don't know, Amsterdam, I think, is like the smoking capital there. And I remember looking back at one of them trips, we were both just like high the whole time. I hardly even remember it because we were just so stoned. And I was smoking significantly less at this point. And I remember in my relationship, we were like hitting some rocky times, I guess you could say. And I said to him, like, you know, I'm smoking less now, you're still smoking the same, but your like attitude and how you are, like, I don't really like it. Like, I was starting to see what it was like from someone else's point of view to like how a stoner behaves. And, you know, we both said, yeah, we're going to stop. And then anyway, fast forward to 2024, it was my birthday in February. I was turning 21. It was my 21st birthday. And we had decided to go to Wales. Still smoking at this point, but I think I must have been smoking less. And we decided to stay in a like cabin in the woods. Now, we'd had many conversations of let's stop together, but nothing really had come of this. And I remember that one night, and this is where everything actually changed for me. We were outside, there was like a bath outside, maybe it was midnight, and we both had got high, and I remember hearing all of these voices, and I was hearing noises coming from the bushes, and I was so scared. And you might think, oh, that's really funny, you know, you're just high, haha, and you're hearing things. But I felt petrified. And then the anxiety of being high with like normal anxiety, I had severe anxiety every single day. Ever since the day I started smoking, I cannot put into words how much anxiety I had. Social anxiety, anxiety going to the gym, anxiety meeting new people, anxiety going to work. Whatever it was, you name it, okay? I overthought every single thing. And then, yeah, when we were in this cabin, I heard all of these noises when we were outside. I ran inside and I was so scared. And for me, it was at that point, I don't think I ever smoked again, because I felt that scared. Now, I know some people be like, it's not as easy to just quit. No, of course it's not. I tried that many times and I always gave up. People say, don't just go cold turkey, you know, like ease yourself out of it, start breaking it down. And if I was to give any advice to someone else in that situation where you really want to quit and you don't know how, just start off small and think about how much of a different person you could be if you did quit, what you are truly capable of. Because now, like, I feel like my brain capacity has expanded dramatically since stopping. Don't get me wrong, I'm not fully anti it, because I think my brain capacity expanded in a different way from smoking. You know, I think that it can definitely open and unlock different parts of your brain that you wouldn't usually access unless you did have cannabis. But I mean, that's a whole other story. But yeah, ever since stopping, like, I have no more anxiety. I have no more brain fog. I've done so many things which I never ever would have dreamt of. When I tell you, I am a completely different person. I have turned into more than my dream person. I'm not even what I used to dream of. I'm 10 times more than what I used to dream of, and I cannot believe that. To me, that is crazy. So I want you to understand that if you picture yourself, say, a year from now, like, imagine the dream version of yourself, you can be 10 times more than that. Like, your brain can't even fathom the person that you want to become, because you'll become so much more if you stop and you dedicate your time elsewhere. And that's not even to count like the amount of money which I ended up saving, of course, from stopping, but the amount of time, the amount of, you know, like not having to wash my clothes as much as I used to, and being so anxious all the time. Oh, what if people could smell weed on me? You know, like, even when I used to go back to my parents' house, my mum would be like, oh, you stink. You know, she could smell it from a mile away. And I remember all of these things. Just start off slow. If you want to stop, just cut down how much you're smoking. Obviously, I would never like for anyone to have to go through what I went through mentally, which made me quit. But I'm grateful that I did go through that. I think to an extent, it must have been like some episode of paranoia, which was induced by smoking this, because like I say, it was a very bad, it was like anxiety attack, everything. And it was enough, let's put it that way, for someone who had been smoking for 5 years to just stop. So I hope that nobody else has to go through that, but just acknowledge that it is all about the habits and the routine. And of course, if your routine is to wake up and smoke, or at the end of the day to have a smoke to look forward to, start replacing those habits. Instead of a smoke, maybe think, I'm gonna go move my body. That's gonna make me feel better. That's gonna be a different habit. Or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that. Now, please don't think that this video is me trying to convince someone or trying to tell someone you need to stop. Like I say, I know many people who function very well smoking. They enjoy it, they go to the gym, they have no issues mentally whatsoever. And yeah, I guess that is my story of my addiction. And I was an addict. And like I say, it's crazy looking back, but I'm super proud of myself that I was managed to overcome this, because I never thought that it was possible. And yeah, I just look back now and I think, how did I live like that? How did I live like that? But of course I wouldn't be where I am now. And like I say, I had no direction with where I wanted to go in my life. And now I live in Thailand. I've lived in Thailand for over a year. I have my own business. I have my own YouTube channel. I have my own podcast. You know, I get to help people every single day for my job overcome their struggles. And I'm so grateful for this. And I love my job. I love my life. Like, I'm so grateful. I never ever used to think like that before. And also something else I just want to mention is, in Thailand, it is legal here. So you think that every day when I walk down the street, there's shops selling it, okay? There's so much easy access here. For me to just go and buy one, it's not, say, like England, where it's illegal and you have to go, you know, and get it off specific people and stuff like that. But here, you can just walk into a shop and buy it. Someone might comment and say, have you ever had a temptation since? There has been maybe 3 or 4 times out of the space of like the 2.5 years where I have thought to myself, I would like one. Now, the corresponding patterns which I've noticed with this are, every time I'm going through something and I feel really depressed, or, you know, like a heartbreak, things like that, I automatically think I want a joint just to numb me, but then I've never actually done it. I speak to people, I talk to my friends, and I tell them, I really feel like I want one right now, but I know I don't want to break my streak, etc. And they're like, you don't need it. I end up going for a run and I'm absolutely fine. So yeah, but there's been the odd time, but genuinely now, I don't even think about it. To me, I couldn't think of anything worse. I hate the smell. Whereas before, obviously I was the complete opposite and I couldn't imagine my life without it. I didn't know how people could function normally without smoking. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know obviously it's a bit of a different video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Obviously, please keep it respectful and polite. It is a bit of a sensitive subject. And yeah, if you have any questions for me or you want me to film any more videos about this topic, then let me know. I'd be more than happy. But thank you so much for watching. I'm really grateful. And I will catch you in the next video.